Tennessee has towns where a 5-ton circus elephant got publicly hanged from a railroad crane in 1916, a town with the most famous whiskey brand on earth but no legal way to buy a drink, and a town sitting on top of America's largest underground lake. These places sound like fiction, but they're real, and right now you can buy real land in and around them for under $100,000. Some plots are under $25,000. Let's get into it. Number 10 is a tiny lot in Lynchburg. We're starting in one of the strangest small towns in the whole state. Lynchburg is the home of Jack Daniel's, one of the most recognizable whiskey brands on the planet, and the distillery has been pumping out Tennessee whiskey here for more than 140 years. But this is where the story gets bizarre. Lynchburg sits in Moore County, and Moore County has been a dry county since the end of Prohibition. That means you can't legally walk into a store in Lynchburg and buy a bottle of Jack Daniel's. The whole town smells like aging oak barrels, the tour buses roll in daily, and the locals make millions off whiskey tourism. But a thirsty visitor has to drive across the county line to legally buy what's literally produced down the street. The only loophole is a special state law that lets the distillery sell commemorative bottles on site, where the whiskey technically comes free with the collector's bottle. It's the wettest dry county in Tennessee. That contradiction alone makes Lynchburg a story town. However, the deeper reason it works for cheap land is that the town itself is microscopic. The whole consolidated city-county had only 6,461 people at the 2020 census, the third least populous county in the entire state. Yet about 250,000 tourists pour through the distillery gates every year. So you've got tourism demand without a hot real estate market. That's what makes this listing interesting. Number 10 is 975 Main Street, Lot 5 in Lynchburg, listed at $84,900. The lot itself is small, about 6,900 square feet, which is roughly 1/6 of an acre. But the lot sits inside a tiny home community called The Retreat at Whiskey Creek, about a mile from the historic town square. The community is purpose-built for tiny homes up to 800 square feet, and non-owner-occupied short-term rentals are approved inside the community. Therefore, the play here isn't a homestead and it isn't a giant ranch. It's a vacation rental tiny house pointed at whiskey tourism. You buy the lot, you put a small build on it, and you rent it out to the people who flew into Nashville to do the distillery tour. The town's reputation does the marketing for you. The Lynchburg Historic District was added to the National Register of Historic Places back in 1972, and the brick storefronts around the courthouse square still look like a 1940s movie set from the right angle. Visitors take pictures all day long. That kind of consistent foot traffic is exactly the engine that makes a small short-term rental work without you running ad campaigns. From whiskey country, we're going west to a place where the weirdness gets a lot heavier. Number 9 is a 5-acre tract in Savannah. Savannah sits in Hardin County, right on the Tennessee River, and the town is calmer than Lynchburg on the surface. But the calm is misleading. Just a few miles south of Savannah sits Shiloh National Military Park, and what happened on that ground in April of 1862 is one of the bloodiest 2 days in American history. The Battle of Shiloh was the first massive shock of the Civil War. By the time the smoke cleared after 2 days of fighting, more than 23,000 men were killed, wounded, or missing on the combined Shiloh and Corinth battlefields. The park today protects 9,324 acres and pulls in around 370,000 visitors a year. So Savannah carries this strange double identity. On one hand, it's a sleepy river town where retirees fish all day. On the other hand, it sits next to a battlefield where a generation of young men died in the rain and the mud. That tension shapes the whole region. However, the upside for land buyers is real. The Savannah area still has properties that would cost 3 times the price 200 miles north toward Nashville. Number 9 is 0 Highway 69 Drive in Savannah, listed at $79,900. The parcel is 5.78 acres of unimproved land, and the listing actually loads it with the boring details that matter most. It's a corner lot with paved road access. It has electric, city water, and high-speed internet at the road. The seller already paid for a survey. The restrictions are listed as minor. The topography is rolling slope with mature trees. That utility package is the real story here. A lot of land under $100,000 in Tennessee sounds like a deal until you realize you'd have to spend 20 grand running power and another 15 drilling a well. This one has city water, electric, and fiber internet already there, so you're not buying raw woods. You're buying a build-ready piece of land near a national park near the Tennessee River with 5 3/4 acres of breathing room. From battlefield country, we head east, because the next town hides something nobody expects. Number 8 is a wooded lot in Sweetwater. Sweetwater is the town that should not exist on a normal map. From the surface, it's a quiet little East Tennessee town between Knoxville and Chattanooga. But about 140 feet underground, hidden inside a cave system called Craighead Caverns, sits the Lost Sea. The Lost Sea is recognized by Guinness World Records as the largest underground lake in America. The visible surface alone covers about 4.5 acres, but the divers who keep mapping it still haven't found the end. Cherokee used the caverns. Confederate soldiers stored food and weapons here during the Civil War. And about 20,000 years ago, a Pleistocene jaguar walked across the cave floor and left footprints that are still there today. Tourists pile in to take a glass-bottom boat ride across this underground lake every single day. About 2,000 visitors come through during peak season, and many of them are road-tripping families pulling off Interstate 75 looking for a place to spend the night. That tourism backbone is the secret weapon for number 8. The address is 162 Chewa Trail in Sweetwater, listed at $79,900. The lot is 1.9 acres of wooded land inside a subdivision called Boiling Springs, and the listing leans hard into Smoky Mountain views and rural privacy. The seller specifically lists underground electric, natural gas, water at the road, and fiber internet inside the subdivision. There's no homeowners association, but there are minimum home sizes. Single-story builds must be at least 1,400 square feet on the first floor, and any structure must be at least 1,400 square feet total for single-story and 2,000 for two-story. Therefore, this isn't a flip-a-cabin lot, but it's a serious dream home lot in a town that has actual reasons for people to visit. You're buying nearly 2 acres of trees, mountain views, and underground utilities in a town that already has tourism infrastructure built in. And there's a detail about Sweetwater that flies under the radar. The Lost Sea was used as a moonshine stash during Prohibition. The Cherokee gathered here for centuries, and Confederate troops actually stored saltpeter for gunpowder inside Craighead Caverns. So you're not just buying near a tourist attraction. You're buying near a layered piece of American history that pulls in cave researchers, geologists, and amateur explorers year-round. The cave temperature stays at a constant 58 degrees, which means the tours run every day except Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's a steady stream of visitors looking for somewhere to eat, sleep, and refuel within a few miles of town. From an underground lake, we now climb up into the mountains, and the next town story is one of the most surprising turnaround stories in the entire state. Number 7 is a wooded mountain parcel in Erwin. Erwin carries one of the most unusual reputations in Tennessee. Back in 1916, the town became nationally known for the public hanging of a 5-ton circus elephant named Mary. And for decades, that single incident cast a long shadow on Erwin's identity and earned the town an infamous nickname as the place that hanged an elephant. But Erwin didn't run from the story. The town flipped it completely. In 2016, on the 100th anniversary of Mary's death, a local group of young professionals called Rise Erwin launched something called the Elephant Revival. They brought in unpainted fiberglass elephant statues from a Denmark-based organization called the Elephant Parade, handed them to local artists, displayed the finished sculptures all along Main Street, and then auctioned them off. Every single dollar went to the Elephant Sanctuary in Hohenwald, Tennessee, which happens to be one of only 2 certified elephant sanctuaries in the entire United States. By 2019, the auctions had raised around $20,000 for the sanctuary, and the tradition kept rolling year after year. Today, painted elephants line downtown Erwin. Families stop to take photos with them, and one of the original sculptures sits permanently inside Erwin Town Hall. The town quite literally turned its hardest chapter into a fundraising engine for elephant welfare and conservation. However, the bigger story for land buyers is what Erwin has become on the outdoor side. The town sits in Unicoi County, and roughly half the county is Cherokee National Forest, which carries more than 600 miles of hiking trails through some of the most rugged terrain in the southeast. 51 miles of the Appalachian Trail cut directly through Unicoi County, which is the third highest mileage of any county the trail touches in Tennessee and North Carolina combined. In 2009, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy named Unicoi County only the fourth official Appalachian Trail community ever designated. The Nolichucky River runs right outside town, and the name itself comes from a Cherokee word that means rushing water. The river cuts through a gorge between the Bald Mountains and the Unaka Mountains, with canyon walls that rise close to 3,000 feet straight up from the water, and the International Rafting Federation has ranked it among the top whitewater runs on the planet for its Class 3 and Class 4 rapids. So Irwin's reframe is real. A town that once carried a heavy reputation has spent the last decade rebuilding itself around hiking, whitewater rafting, elephant conservation, and small-town Appalachian charm. That's the angle for number 7. The address is Lot 4 Bailey Hollow Road in Irwin, listed at $79,000. The parcel is 7.86 acres of wooded land just outside the city limits. The listing pitches it as a weekend getaway, a hunting cabin, or a private mountain retreat. There's a small stream along the road frontage, a large culvert already installed, a graded driveway, and a cleared house site. However, the listing is honest about the rough edges too. There are no utilities on site yet. Electric is nearby with an extension estimated around $8,000, and no soil test has been done for septic. Therefore, this isn't a polished subdivision lot, it's a real mountain parcel, and that's the whole point. You're buying almost 8 acres of Appalachian woods, with a driveway and a building site already cleared, walking distance from one of the most famous hiking trails in the world. From mountain country, we drop back west because Savannah keeps producing land deals worth talking about. Number 6 is an 11-acre tract in Savannah. Savannah keeps coming back on this list for one reason: the land deals are simply that good. Hardin County also touches Pickwick Lake, a Tennessee Valley Authority reservoir that covers about 43,100 acres and has roughly 500 miles of shoreline across Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. Pickwick is nationally famous for trophy smallmouth bass fishing, and Savannah even brands itself as the catfish capital of the world. So you've got a town with the Tennessee River, a major recreational lake, a historic downtown, and the Shiloh battlefield all within a short drive of each other. And the land prices still haven't caught up to Nashville commuters or the Smoky Mountains tourism belt. Number 6 is 6 Pyburn Drive in Savannah, listed at $75,000. The parcel is 11.31 acres of unimproved land. That's the headline number. 11 acres for $75,000. The listing positions it as land near Pickwick Lake with privacy, acreage, country setting, and gently rolling hills. There's paved road frontage, electricity available at the road, and 2 listed building sites. The land could be divided into 2 tracts used for recreation, cabins, a mini farm, or hunting. But the part that really matters is the line that says no, restrictions. That's a unicorn at this price point. No homeowners association, no minimum square footage, no rules about what kind of structure you can put up. You could run cattle on it, put 2 cabins on it, drop a tiny house and an RV pad, or just sit on it as a hunting tract. The listing also notes that the property is across the road from a development called the Preserve on Pickwick Lake, which means infrastructure and demand keep getting closer to your fence line. Therefore, this is one of the most flexible deals in the entire list. 11 acres with no rules attached is the kind of property someone keeps in their family for 30 years and watches the value climb as Pickwick Lake demand pushes outward. And the timing matters here. The Tennessee Valley Authority built Pickwick Landing Dam in 1938. The lake covers parts of 3 states, and the Hardin County Convention and Visitors Bureau has actively recruited fishing tournaments like Bassmasters and Major League Fishing to anchor weekend traffic. That means the demand for waterfront-adjacent land keeps growing, but 11-acre tracts at this price keep getting rarer every year. From 11 acres of wooded country, we stay in Savannah for an even bigger parcel, and the use case shifts in an unexpected direction. Number 5 is a 15-acre development tract in Savannah. If you're starting to think Savannah is the cheat code of this video, you're not wrong. But this next property is different from the others. Number 5 is Zero Greenleaf Loop in Savannah, listed at $75,000. The parcel is 15.4 acres of unimproved land. However, the real shocker isn't the acreage. The listing says the property already has 32 lots laid out with public water available. That changes the entire opportunity. The other Savannah parcels are recreation tracts and home site tracts. This one is set up as a small development. A buyer with patience and some capital could finish the infrastructure, market the lots individually, and rebuild the price several times over. Or they could keep it whole and treat it as one large rural homestead with a Stream Creek waterfront feature and rolling wooded topography. The town context behind it is the same Savannah story. Hardin County sits on the Tennessee River. Shiloh's battlefield ground is just south of town, and Pickwick Lake's recreational economy keeps pulling weekend traffic in from Memphis, Nashville, and Birmingham. That recreation traffic is exactly the kind of demand a small subdivision needs to eventually sell out lots. The facts section on the listing identifies the lot as rural and small town, with level, natural drainage, rolling, and wooded topography. There's a stream or creek feature listed as waterfront, and the utilities note says public water. Therefore, this property doesn't need a buyer to start from scratch. It needs a buyer with vision and a calculator. From a development tract, we now drop into a smaller, cleaner build lot in a totally different part of the state. Number 4 is a 1-acre building lot in Decatur. Decatur is one of the most underrated towns we'll talk about today. It's the county seat of Meigs County, and Meigs County calls itself the Shoreline County for a reason. The county is wrapped on its western side by Watts Bar Lake and Chickamauga Lake, both of them massive Tennessee Valley Authority reservoirs, and the Hiwassee River cuts across the southern part of the county. Together, that's nearly 75 miles of shoreline inside one quiet rural county. Watts Bar Lake alone covers around 39,000 acres with over 700 miles of total shoreline. Yet Meigs County had only 12,758 people at the 2020 census. So you have a county with more shoreline than most coastal counties have beach, sitting almost completely off the radar of out-of-state buyers. That's the whole reason cheap land still exists here. Number 4 is Lot 1. North Nopone Valley Road in Decatur, listed at $51,500. The lot is 1.03 acres, and yes, it's smaller than the big Savannah tracts. But that's actually the point. This one is build-ready usability, not raw acreage. A 1-acre lot in a quiet rural valley in a county with 75 miles of public shoreline within driving distance for the price of a used pickup truck plus a few months of side hustle work. The Nopone Valley Road corridor has several similar lots listed in the same general price range, which means this isn't a one-off oddity. It's a pocket of small, affordable parcels in a county nobody outside of Tennessee really thinks about. You could put a small, modest home on this lot, retire here, and spend your weekends on Watts Bar or the Hiwassee River, and your total housing budget would be a fraction of what people pay for the same lifestyle on a lake in North Carolina or Georgia. Therefore, Decatur is the practical pick on this list. It's not glamorous, it's not legendary, and it doesn't have an underground lake. But it has water, it has small-town services, and it has land that still comes in under $60,000. The Meigs County area also has a story that gets quietly overlooked. Cherokee Chief John Jolly lived in this region, and the Trail of Tears crossing at Blythe's Ferry, where thousands of Cherokee crossed the Tennessee River during the 1838 forest removal, is preserved as a memorial right here in Meigs County. So the land carries a heavy history without being a heavy tourist circuit, which is exactly why prices stayed quiet. The economy leans on manufacturing and retail, the median household income sits around $59,000, and the housing market hasn't gotten swept up in the Knoxville and Chattanooga boom yet. That's the window. We're heading back to Savannah one more time because the next 2 parcels punch even cheaper. Number 3 is a wooded 7-acre lot in Savannah. The remaining Savannah deals get cheaper from here, but the quality stays surprisingly high. Number 3 is 1 Lakeway Lane in Savannah, listed at $49,999. The parcel is 7.5 acres of unimproved land, and the listing photos and details lean hard into the natural character of the property. Now this is where the listing earns its place on this list. The seller specifically names the trees on the property: mature white oak, red oak, chestnut oak, and other hardwoods. That's not generic real estate copy. That's a description from someone who actually walked the land. The topography is rolling and wooded with merchantable timber, a rural setting, and paved road access. Electric utility is noted in the listing details. The location is built for outdoor people. The listing says the property sits close to Pickwick Lake and the Tennessee River, only a few minutes from Bruton Branch State Park with a boat ramp into Pickwick, and near an ATV park called Dry Creek. That's 3 different recreation outlets within a short drive of the property line. Boating, fishing, hiking, camping, and ATV use all from one base camp, and the broader Savannah context still applies. Shiloh National Military Park sits just south of town with its 9,000-plus acres of preserved battlefield. The Tennessee River Museum is downtown. The catfish capital of the world branding pulls in fishing tournaments year-round. Therefore, this isn't just cheap land. It's cheap land with a recreation engine attached. For under $50,000, you're getting 7.5 wooded acres with named hardwoods, electric at the road, paved access, and a building site that backs into one of the most active outdoor recreation pockets in West Tennessee. Real quick before we drop into the last 2 properties, if you've made it this far and you're starting to take this seriously, hit subscribe so the next batch of listings I'm tracking lands in your feed. No fluff. Just real addresses and real prices. Let's keep going. Number 2 is a build-ready lot on Bruton Branch Road. Number 2 is 2,160 Bruton Branch Road in Savannah, listed at $49,900. The parcel is 1.48 acres, and on paper that sounds smaller than what we've been looking at. However, the way this listing is set up is the real story. The listing actually describes the property as 2 lots, not 1. The land is cleared, sloped, has views, and is wooded along parts of the edges. There's paved road frontage. There's no homeowners association. The pitch is build-ready land near Pickwick Lake, positioned for either a dream home or a weekend retreat. That 2-lot setup is what makes this property creative. A buyer could build the main home on one portion of the parcel and keep the other portion as a buffer or as a future second structure, depending on what local rules allow. Or one lot could become the home, and the other becomes parking and storage for a boat, an RV, or a small workshop. The cleared status means you're not paying for tree removal, grading, or initial site work. That alone can save a buyer $15,000 to $20,000 compared to a raw wooded parcel. The location plays into the same Pickwick Lake recreation economy we've already covered. Pickwick is a Bill-Dance signature lake, a regular host for Bassmasters and Major League fishing tournaments, and the area pulls in serious boat traffic from May through October. Therefore, this lot isn't just a place to live. It's a base for a weekend rental, a fishing cabin, or a retirement plan that doesn't require a mortgage from your old job in Chicago. For under $50,000, you're getting a build-ready, cleared, paved road parcel with 2-lot designations in a town that already markets itself to anglers, boaters, and weekenders. That brings us to the cheapest property on this entire list, and you need to know what you're actually buying before you fall in love with the price. Number 1 is a small wooded lot in Savannah on Olivet Drive. Number 1 is the cheapest property in this video, and we're closing on it for a reason. The address is 470 Olivet Drive in Savannah, listed at $22,500. The lot is almost a full acre of land in the established Olivet community, with a small creek-like feature called Kerr Branch running along the side. The annual tax bill on the property is listed at $99. So before we go any further, let's be honest about what this property actually is. The listing notes that a previously lived-in log cabin remains on the lot, but the cabin is no longer considered livable, and the property is being sold as land only. Therefore, you aren't buying a cabin. You're buying a small wooded parcel with the remains of an old structure on it that would most likely need to be cleared away. The seller calls the property a beautiful piece of land in a desirable Olivet location, peaceful, established, suitable for a new build or an investment hold. The facts section lists the lot as rolling and wooded with a small-town rural setting, no current utilities on the property, paved road access, no homeowners association. That utility gap is the catch. Bringing power and water to a parcel like this could add a meaningful chunk to your total cost depending on how close the nearest service connection actually is. That's why the price is $22,500 and not $75,000. But this is the honest pitch. Even with the cabin teardown, even with the utility hookups, you're starting at $22,500. Almost a full acre of land in the same Hardin County we've been talking about all video, near the Tennessee River, near Pickwick Lake, near Shiloh National Military Park, with a small natural waterway running through the side of the property and a tax bill that costs less than a streaming subscription per month. That's the bottom of Tennessee land pricing in 2026, with a property that still has a real path forward. It isn't a scam, it isn't in the middle of nowhere, and it isn't landlocked. It's just a quiet, established lot in a town most coastal buyers have never heard of. From a whiskey town with no liquor sales, to a town built on top of an underground lake, to a mountain town that turned a dark chapter into a conservation story, the pattern is the same. Tennessee's most unusual towns are still the cheapest places to put down roots. The state has its glamorous markets like Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and the Smoky Mountain tourism belt around Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, where land prices climbed past most working people years ago. However, the towns in this video kept their pricing low because the outside world stayed busy looking at the obvious places. That gap is the opportunity. A buyer who can see past the headlines, the legends, and the empty roads can lock in real acreage in real towns with real water access, real tourism economies, and real long-term upside. None of these properties require a $1 million mortgage. None of them require you to win a lottery. They require homework, patience, and a willingness to drive an hour off the interstate. If you found one property in this video that made you actually pause and look it up, do me a favor and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next round of listings I'm tracking across the South. Real addresses, real prices, real context. That's it from me today.